So exactly how fast are TF2's mercenaries? Well, that's the video again, with 6 years with no updates yeah, this sounds familiar. And that's because this is actually a follow-up to a video I made, I guess over a year ago now, about the class's actual heights, and how we would go about determining those in a real-world scale. It's a fun video, I think, and you're looking at it right now. I'll put the link here if you haven't seen it, or if you want to watch it again. Go watch it. We'll wait. Alright, I'm just kidding, we're not actually going to wait for those guys. And now that we've weeded out those suckers, let's get started. So in that video about heights, we had to first determine what a hammer unit was equal to, with hammer units being the unit of measurements used in source games. And in that video, I went with the general measurement of 16 hammer units being equal to 1 foot, or 30.48 centimeters. And like I said, that is kind of a general translation of hammer units to feet. It even says so on Wikipedia, and Wikipedia is never wrong. However, it also does say that the exact measurements do vary from game to game, and there is really no one exact answer. But 16 hammer units to 1 foot is the best idea we've got. And with that set of measurements, the characters in TF2 end up being very small. The tallest character, Heavy, ends up only being 5 foot 6 inches, or 167.64 centimeters. Not exactly someone who should be calling everyone else tiny babies. But I did have quite a few comments on that video reminding me that TF2 does in fact not take place in modern times, and that people were shorter in the past. But come on, the game takes place 60 years ago. Yeah, if you go back hundreds or thousands of years, the average human man was shorter than today, but the difference between 1968 and now is basically non-existent. To the extent that there is a difference, it's incredibly small. And I don't think at any point in human history would 5 foot 6 inches be considered well above average in the way that Heavy is portrayed in game. And I just wanted to point that out because I thought it was funny. But there's actually another factor that's worth bringing up, even if I don't know if it makes that much of a difference for what we're talking about. So while the general idea for conversion from hammer units to feet is 16 to 1, apparently character models usually use 12 to 1. So that's basically 1 hammer unit equaling 1 inch. That would have Heavy go from being 5 foot 6 or 167.64 centimeters to 7 foot 4 or 223.52 centimeters. And at that scale, even the smallest class, Engineer, is standing at 6 foot 4 or 193 centimeters. So when we take these conversions as literally as possible, they are either unreasonably small or unreasonably tall. And now, I don't use Hammer, I don't know the exact reasons why characters and maps use a different scale. I'm sure it's for some kind of gameplay related reasons, maybe collision or something. But even if you're taking a character that's originally scaled at a 12 to 1 ratio, and then putting them into a world that uses 16 to 1, it would still make more sense to use the world measurements when you're comparing them, right? I'm confusing myself a little bit here, but I'm pretty sure that makes sense. You would have to compare the character model to the worlds. So I am pretty positive that using the 16 to 1 ratio still worked just fine. But obviously, even if Heavy was technically 5 foot 6 in the game, that is still not what he was meant to be in-universe. The in-game units are realistically not meant to be taken literally. So that's why in the height video, we had to find other sources to help determine their in-universe size. And once we did that, we could convert the in-game units, and that would apply to everything else, including speed. And we could probably assume that the 100% move speed that Pyro, Engineer, Sniper, and formerly Spy have is the average speed that a person moves in the TF2 universe. You know, it's a good baseline. And 100% move speed is equal to 300 hammer units per second, and that becomes 18.75 feet per second, or 12.78 miles per hour, or 20.57 kilometers per hour. But remember, that's at the game scale. And at the game scale, you'd have a tiny 4 foot 9 inch tall Engineer running around at 12.78 miles per hour. But in order to get Engineer to reach his presumed real height of 5 foot 6 inches, or 167.64 centimeters, we need to multiply the in-game measurements by about 1.1566. And in order to get their speed, we would have to do the same. Scaled to, big quotes, real-world measurements, 300 hammer units a second would become 346.98 hammer units a second, and that would be equal to 14.79 miles per hour, or 23.8 kilometers per hour. And you might have noticed something, that the normal speed of 12.78 miles per hour is already pretty fast for a person to run, but adjusted for their actual heights, they become even faster. I mean, Heavy is the slowest class in TF2, and in-game measurements, he runs at 9.8 miles per hour, or 15.77 kilometers per hour. And with our scaling, that's bumped up to 11.33 miles per hour, or 18.23 kilometers. And you might say, oh, that's not so fast. Usain Bolt is the fastest man in the world, and he can run 100 meters in 9.58 seconds, which is about 23.35 miles per hour. And he's even a little bit taller than Heavy. But 100 meters is only 100 meters. That's a pretty short distance. The mercenaries are doing a lot more running. Even the fastest record for a mile set by a human was back in 1999 at 3 minutes 43.13 seconds. And that would only be 16.133 miles per hour. Yeah, only 16.133 miles per hour. I mean, records only stood for 26 years. I mean, you know, whatever. I could do it. A car. In fact, I'm actually a pretty decent long distance runner, but I've never been very fast. The fastest I could do on a treadmill for any prolonged period of time is about 8 miles per hour. So Heavy is already outrunning me. And if you want to take into account that Heavy is carrying around a 150 kilogram minigun at all times, I would be scared to know how fast he could run without it. I mean, we're talking superhuman levels of speed here. But if we're talking superhuman speed, we gotta go to Scout. At his in-game speed of 400 hammer units per second, he's already breaking the record for the fastest mile, running at 17.05 miles per hour. Adjusted for the real height, that becomes 19.71 miles per hour. That's not quite as fast as Usain Bolt's max speed for 100 meters, but it's getting pretty close. But then, Scout is able to reach the game's max run speed cap of 520 hammer units a second while using the Babyface's blaster with max boost. You cannot run faster than this in Team Fortress 2. Even with a speed boost, or even with manpower power-ups, you will not go faster than 520. But that 520 hammer units a second comes in at 22.16 miles per hour in-game, or 25.63 adjusted. That would probably make Scout the fastest person on the planet. And that's just in the 100 meter. I mean, if he's able to maintain that speed forever, he'd break basically every record in existence. Especially for the double jump record. I mean, I've never seen anyone do that in real life. But you want to know something that's pretty nuts? The speed difference between Scout with max boost and a normal Scout is the same difference in speed between a normal Scout and a Demo Man. Both are 120 hammer units faster. It's kind of easy to forget because the Babyface's blaster was nerfed into the ground a long time ago, but in that time period between two cities and gunmetal, it was pretty busted. They didn't have to go that far in nerfing it, but yeah. Also, no, you could never outrun your hitbox of the Babyface's blaster. I don't know where that rumor came from or why some people kept repeating it, but that was never a thing, and that's not why the Babyface's blaster was nerfed. But speaking of Demo Man, he is technically capable of generating the game's fastest ground speed when charging with one of his shields. That clocks in at 750 hammer units per second, and when adjusted, that comes out to 36.97 miles per hour or 59.5 kilometers per hour. I mean, he's charging down a road in a residential neighborhood and he's going to get pulled over. And then I guess real quick we can go over a few other things. I mean, Heavy is the slowest class at 11.33 miles per hour or 18.23 kilometers. But when spun up with the Brass Beast, he can go as slow as 2.17 miles per hour. And 5.42 with any other minigun. But in terms of walk speed, a Demo Man with the Scotsman Skull Cutter out actually comes in second, running at a speed of 11.73 miles per hour. Soldier is a very close third, running at 11.83 miles per hour or 19.04 kilometers. An Eviction Notice Heavy is a little bit slower than Demo Man at a speed of 13.04 miles per hour. And an Engineer Hauling a Building is a tiny bit faster than that at 13.31 miles per hour or 21.42 kilometers per hour. And then regular Demo Man at 13.8 miles per hour. A Heavy with the Buffalo Stake or the Gloves of Running Urgently is actually one hammer unit slower than Pyro Engineer and Sniper at 299 to their 300. And that would make him run at 14.74 miles per hour to their 14.79. A Demo Man with the Wee Booties and a Shield is just a little bit faster than that at 15.18 miles per hour. Spy and Medic at 15.77 miles per hour or 25.38 kilometers per hour. A Power Jack Pyro, 17 miles per hour. A Low Health Escape Plan Soldier and a Max Uber Overdose Medic actually both have the same speed of 384 hammer units per second, and that comes out to 18.93 miles per hour. Scout's default speed is of course 19.71 miles per hour, and a Demo Man with the Wee Booties, 4 heads from the Eyelander, and a Shield is actually a little bit faster at 20.04 miles per hour. And lastly, the Babyface's Blaster Scout comes in at 25.63 miles per hour, or 41.25 kilometers per hour, which is really, really fast. And there's a few other speeds in there that I didn't go over, like I didn't go over every single head level with the Eyelander, or every single possible speed you can get with the Escape Plan or the Overdose, but you get the idea. If we're choosing to take this over-the-top cartoon video game seriously, and why wouldn't we, then all the characters are pretty much superhumanly fast. Even a relatively unassuming character like Sniper has a normal movement speed that's comparable to most human beings sprinting. And they're able to do that non-stop without ever slowing down. Because, you know, it's a video game and you don't want to have to take a breath. But also, like I said, that's not even taking into account a class like Heavy who's carrying around a weapon that's over 300 pounds. Again, you know, I could do it, but I would probably have to take a little bit of breath. But if you do want to compare it to a few other things in game, A rocket from the rocket launcher travels at 1,100 hammer units per second. That only comes out to 54.23 miles per hour, or 87.27 kilometers. If we compare that to the RPG-7, which looks kind of like the TF2 rocket launcher and is from around the same time period, the TF2 rocket is incredibly slow. The real thing would be going at 668.18 miles per hour, or 1,080 kilometers per hour, which is a lot faster. But the fastest projectile in TF2 is actually tied between a few things, though the Sandman was the first to have it, and that projectile moves at 3,000 hammer units per second. And that means that Scout hits that baseball at about 147.86 miles per hour. And according to the MLB, the record for the hardest hit baseball was actually made just about a month ago at the time I'm recording this, and that was by O'Neal Cruz at 122.9 miles per hour. So Scout is just effortlessly launching baseballs faster than any major league player in history. And he's the fastest man in the world. And he can defy physics by double jumping. I mean, Scout may be a scrawny twig boy, but I think he might be a force of nature. I mean, if you were from where he was from, you probably would be freaking dead.
Gotta go fast!
But that's really all I got. I did mean for this video to come out a long time ago, but here we are, better late than never. So, thanks for watching, and a big thanks to DT for making the racetrack map seen in this video, as well as a special thanks to my patrons like Varric, Captain Forex, Eggox, Colonel, Probably Vinegar, Caponicus, Kelso the Pirate, Pillsman's Fox, Some Crazy Idiot, Ozond, Evil Toaster, Salt God, Lavi, Taupe, Time Consuming, Man344, Nolan46, and Melodici.